Here for the rant on January 10th. As we come into 2025, I think this is going to finally be the pivot year, okay? Because we've had the second totally artificial bubble I've been talking about a long time. Larger, longer than anything we've ever seen. 100% artificial, 27 trillion and still rising in stimulus, just off the charts. And this thing finally looks like it's gonna break this year. Now, I've also studied, as I've also mentioned many times in the past, when a bubble, and this is the largest, okay, first crashes, the first wave down averages 42%. So out of a whole 80 to 90%, 2.5 year or so crash out of a major bubble, you get the biggest whack right off the bat. And it ranges up to 50%. And when I look at the charts here, the most logical targets for this first wave down back to the COVID lows, early 2020, would be more like 50% down. So this is nothing to be, willy-nilly about, okay? Again, with all this stimulus, they've already pushed back. This second bubble would have naturally, now this is on the 45-year innovation technology cycle. The baby boom spending cycle peaked in 2007. First bubble on that 45-year cycle, the technology cycle, peaked in 2000, and then you'd expect about 22 and a half years later, and in and about this time frame, a second bubble. But this really should have peaked around late 2019 by natural cycles and crashed into late 2022. That's what should have happened. So all this 27 trillion in stimulus, particularly the 11 trillion of that came since COVID in 2020, okay, has pushed off this bubble 5 years and created a whole final bigger wave 5 years later. So this can only be bad. And of course, everybody's going to say, well, if the economy is slowing, the Fed can create a soft landing. That is not my view. We shall see, because this has never happened. But a bubble this big, there's no way you get a soft landing out of this in the end, okay? And what I'm seeing right now, the jobs report just came out this morning. 256,000 jobs, which was more like last month, which was very strong, but they were expecting 155. The markets are only down 1%. So the markets are still a little bit on crack here and all. But it's hard. How can they ease when jobs are holding up this much? The 10-year Treasury bond just got up to almost 4.8%. Over 4.5% is not good for the stock market. And it looks like to me we're heading towards 5%. And I think that's deadly as well. So everything says here we are due for a correction. The leading AI stocks, and you got to remember, there's two leading sectors of this bubble. One of them's outside of the stock system, which is crypto, okay, and Bitcoin and all that. And that's all about massively restructuring the financial assets and financial services system. 630 trillion and rising of financial assets in the world. So that's a huge thing. And the other one is AI. And people say, well, Harry, did you see AI coming? Look back at the roaring 2000s. My biggest topic in that book, outside of the markets and the generation cycles, was the automation of management and professional services. Okay, and if you look back at history, crystal clear. How have we made so much progress through better and better technologies, okay? We first automated the farms and moved everybody off the farms into factories, massively, 10x productivity for workers in factories back then. And Henry Ford was the key person with the assembly line, okay? And then factories, then we've been automating for decades, clerical and back office work in corporations and business and government, okay? Well, the last one is professional and managerial, and that's where AI comes in. You got to get computers that can think almost more like humans and do higher level, what I call the highest level left brain functions. So again, I've always called computers something very simple. They are left brain machines. So we've gone from simple to complex, okay? So that's what's happening here. So this is the next big thing. Bitcoin restructures financial services. Now, a huge industry is going to get a lot larger because also in the first time in history, if Henry Ford in the assembly line brought up the middle class, which is still expanding around the emerging world, but this is again bringing up the upper classes, and it's going to be the last big step in automation that at least we can foresee in our lifetime. So it is a big deal. So what we have here, again, Bitcoin and AI. Now, why do I've been focusing on Bitcoin and crypto, Bitcoin being the best leading indicator because it's on a great little 4-year cycle, okay? And something, again, Michael Turpin, my friend down here in his book, Bitcoin Super Cycles, just come out and talks about. But this is really, really clear, and that's why I like it, okay? But something is happening here. It has happened in this 4-year cycle. So remember, there was a 2013 peak, minor one, 2017, much more major, and then of course 2021 when we got all the way to 108,000. And that's only, I think, the first wave up in a broader 30 to 40 year cycle. It's going to take this thing up into the 2037 at least, okay? So this is just the first wave up. And so what I'm seeing here, yes, this 4-year cycle, we've seen the big 1-year surge come a year earlier than normal. This should have happened from late 24 to 25, just like it did from late 20 to 21 and back in all these cycles, okay? I think there's a reason for this. I think that this third major cycle, again, 2017 was major, 2021, and now 2024, this is just the 5th wave. So that was the first wave, and then the 3rd wave and 5th wave of this larger 1-year, let's call it a 12-year cycle roughly, okay? And so it would be logical that it would take a bigger correction, a bigger 2-wave correction, and I'd say in this case 2 years instead of 1 year, and instead of the normal 77%, which has been what we've gotten approximately every 4-year cycle thus far, more like an 86% or larger crash over 2 years. So I think that's the most likely scenario. 2025 is either going to see Bitcoin go up one more time, and this time the next target would be 150, and I've showed that in the newsletter, okay, by late 2025. But the second cycle, I think, is the one I favor. We've already peaked at 108 here. We've had our first crash. We're bouncing, tepid bounce, and we're going to head back down, continue to head down in 2025, all the way into late 2026 for this bigger correction. So again, this should be more obvious in the next few months, but that's why it's best to stay safe here, okay? I mean, and we've been out now, okay? And that's been my advice. If people are still in, you can play it as long as you want, as long as you got a tight trigger. I keep saying that as well, okay? And the treasury bonds keep getting beat up because of all this stimulus and everything and pushing back this top. They don't see a recession yet, okay? They used a year ago, they did. But these treasury bonds are going to respond when the economy shows weakness, and I think that should happen sooner. But remember, the treasury bonds, if you're back out of those and TLT, you don't even have to rush back in, okay? Let's see some signs here, because most of the gains, as 2008 show, will come at the worst, and that'll probably be out in 2026, okay, or later, okay? So that's where we're at, let's hang in there, let's see what happens. I think this is gonna be the biggest crash year we've seen since 2001. Okay, and this is the second major tech bubble, and this crash is going to go deeper and take longer because it's the end of this massive 2-bubble 45-year cycle that's been stretched 5 years by the biggest stimulus program in history. And again, if this ends well, I'm just going to quit, folks. I'm going to quit my profession and say, hey, I'm grandpa, and we need some young kids who understand this new economy where we just print our way to prosperity. I'll keep you updated.